Isn't that professional? Or at least it would be if I had managed the transition and the audio. But I didn't, so it isn't. Hello there. We are today continuing to sculpt this tiki mug. This tiki mug will eventually, hopefully, become a pelican with a fish hanging out of one end of its beak. The pelican is looking down. Also, the pelican is a sailor in the anthropomorphic notion thereof. I think that's what it's called, but who knows. Excuse me while I put something on Instagram explaining that I'm in fact live streaming. That having been done, we shall continue. And when I mean continue, we shall start. Actually, no, we're continuing. So what we're doing here is we are halfway through, or thereabouts. We are halfway through the tiki mug creation process, and here it is here. Not much to look at, I think it's fair to say. We have a sailor's hat. Don't worry about the top. The top will get fixed in a moment. We have the pelican with some eyes and a beak. I don't know if beaks have nostrils. Presumably not. This is something that I should probably look up and ask the question thereof, and then tell the audience yourselves. In the meantime, feel free to have a poll or something on this. Don't feel free like I'm not actually going to create a poll, but you should absolutely feel free to ask the question. Do beaks have nostrils? Do beaks have nostrils? Yes, most birds have nostrils called nares. All right, well, there's your trivia quote for the day. A nare. Birds have nares, which are their nostrils. So this adds some complexity to the design, because now we're going to need to find out where pelicans have their nostrils on their beaks. You can't see this because, again, I am very afraid of doing some sort of copyright strike thing going on. Aside from anything else, it's not my content, so I don't want to look at it, or I don't want to display it on screen. So I'm looking at a bunch of pelican beaks, and I suggest you do so at home, because otherwise this stream is looking pretty boring. And I can't find a nair. Cannot find a nair on the beak of a pelican. All right, I've got a particularly gnarly looking pelican here. Again, you can't see it. This is, oh, hang on. Are the nairs right up the top? Is your pelican nostril right up the top? Again, this is one where, in the words of the internet, and not in a good way, but you should probably, quote, do your own research. Right. So pelicans do in fact have nostrils, and the nostrils are kind of up here. So let's sculpt in a divot. Let's sculpt in a couple of divots for your nostrils. That did virtually nothing at all. All right, up the strength, down the radius. Find a spot where your pelican beak should be. I feel like that's too much. All right, what we're going to do is we are going to not worry about it for now. I feel like it's a small enough detail that that's not going to be an issue. However, what we are going to want to do, I think, is refine this beak. we really want to delineate, not that much though, we really want to delineate the top of the beak from the back of the beak and the back of the beak from the rest of the body. And we want to kind of pinch it in because we want to give a sense of a sense of something, use your words, a sense of 3Dness. But what we can't do, ladies and gentlemen, and NBs and anyone else watching, is what we can't do is we cannot pinch too much, because part of the fun thing about tiki mugs is that you can't have an undercut. And an undercut is where the, how do I explain this? When you're creating a tiki mug, you have a mold, and the mold is very, very firm. Is that the words? The mold is tough. The mold just has no give. There's a word there for it. Structurally sound, tensile, solid. The mold is solid and hard, and the object that you're molding is hard too. So the only way that you can deal with a hard mold on a hard surface is for the mold to come away cleanly from the surface, for there not to be anything that would impede the mold coming away from the surface. Probably not making sense. If you're really that interested in tiki mugs, look up undercuts. And so what we can't have is we can't have anything that will not come away cleanly from a surface. And what I would dearly love is for the seam between the mold pieces to be basically across here, across the side. So you've got, imagine like two mold pieces, one at the front, one at the back, and the front one just comes away cleanly. That probably made no sense. Oh well. So we need to create the delineation. I'm kind of not really happy with this fish as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to smooth that out a little bit. Where's our smooth tool? We're just going to make that smooth, and we're going to turn off symmetry because I just want to have a bit of a play, make that, just give that a feel of a fish. We'll go through and we'll make that kind of look a bit nicer in the end. Okay, so we have our pelican, we've got our pelican beak. We will deal with the nostrils or nans or whatever they're called later on. I feel like I also need to give him some, or her, or it. I have no delineation here. I feel like I want to give it some sort of jerry curl as well. Again, we'll do that in the next step. Just to kind of, I don't know what, but I feel like it needs some sort of something here, because this forehead is a little bit bland. While we're here, actually, the last thing we might do is to just trace in the beginnings of a kind of a t-shirt. No. Trace in the start of a t-shirt. I should say there's a ton of addition and subtraction and undoing on this. No, you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to change the mesh size. We're going to make it a lot more defined now. Okay, now we can kind of get to work with a fair bit more definition. So for a start here, let's fix up his or her or its beak. So we'll do a little crease. We don't want to do that. We'll do a little crease here. And we'll mirror on the y-axis. Lovely. Let's up the strength as well. Well, that's way too much of a crease. But what we can do is probably now put in the nostrils. I also saw that in your average pelican seems to have a little bit of a flare, just like that. All right, now let's give him or her or it some eyes. So we're just going to draw some in here, and we're going to draw some looking down, kind of. We'll try that again. So much undoing is part of this. In fact, what we'll do is we will just nope. Wonder what our fall off is. Our fall off is probably something. It's better. Okay, I think that's good. I think that works. We will go through and we will do more playing with that. Do we want to give it a jerry curl at this point? Now, the jerry curl is going to be white because ultimately this bird is going to be white. I need to look up jerry curls. I think they're called jerry curls. I hope they are. Also hope that jerry curl is not a jerry curl. Jerry curl hair. Right, that's more of a perm situation. I'm more thinking kind of like the Bill Haley and the Comets look. Bill Haley and the Comets. Hair. So I want this pelican to kind of have a indistinguishable. All right, Bill Haley hair, and he had what's the Superman kiss curl? Kiss curl is what it's called, right? And it needs to kind of come down and almost do a complete loop like that. But that just looks dumb. If we were going to do that, we would have to kind of play with its hair all the way around, and I think that's just going to look stupid. So maybe a tuft. We'll come back to it. We have other things to do. First thing we are going to do is we are going to create. We're going to create. Nope. Actually, let's cut in. Let's cut in to this and make his shoulders more defined. So for that, we're going to do a crease. Ish. No, I reckon we'll do a subtractive crease. Something like that. Ugh. That looks nasty. It needs to come in more like that. Okay, but I do not like the crease and I do not like what it's going. I think we're going to have to build this up instead. And we're going to perhaps use a subtractive draw instead. Let's see what that does. No, that's even worse. Additive. We'll do an additive. All right, let's try and inflate. What I'm trying to do is basically create a little bit more definition. I feel like we need to... Ugh, I have left a crease. Okay, that's better. I want to make it quite clear that his, or its, or theirs, shoulders are shoulders. We do need to crease this in, that's the thing. We do need to crease it in, but if I pull the strength back and I set the radius to something relatively big, there we go, that's getting more like it. Okay. So now we'll just pull all of that in. That's not that. That's looking better. Okay. So now we have a sailor. I don't like the smoothness of that. I'll pull that in. Okay. Pull down the strength a little bit. All right. We probably need to do a patch of smoothing, but I think we can get away with it, particularly as we're going to turn that into a t-shirt anyway. Okay. Now, again, one of the things about a tiki mug is you don't necessarily want to give it a lot of... you don't want to have a lot of parts of the mug that are difficult to get into and clean. So really, I probably shouldn't have done that. But for the purposes of our purposes, I think I'll continue. We can always blow that back out and give him those, or her, or it. What do they call the trapezoids? Is that the thing where there's, you know, you've got your basically muscles in between your shoulders and your neck, and it avoids you from ever wearing a tie again? I think that's we might have to create some of those for this particular bird, just to make it more easy for dishwashing fluid to actually get into this mug if it ever becomes a mug. All right, now more definition around the beak. So we'll do that. And we'll do that. And then more definition around the front of the beak. Okay. I think what we need to do now is just a round of general smoothness, because we're creating a whole bunch of jagged edges. So I'm just going to pull the definition down and get some general smoothness into this whole thing. Now, because we upped the definition, it meant that when we smooth everything down, it's actually not going to be too bad. And we're going to have to build up the definition again, but we've been fairly harsh in creation of everything here. So it means that when we... I'm actually going to smooth that right back. Yeah, we've been relatively harsh when we've been actually creating the bumps and nooks and things. So when you smooth them down, they don't disappear altogether. They're still relatively happy. Okay, I like where this is going. I hope you do too. Feel free to add a comment if indeed you are watching this live, which I'm assuming you're not because generally no one does, but that's okay because this is about the content. Yeah, and it's about the content because I was going to do this anyway, so I might as well live stream it to the void. Hello, void, by the way. It's good to see you. All right, we'll just give an extra smoothing to the beak as well. And to the eyes. All right, let's now that we've done that, let's crease everything back up again. We'll put some of the definition back in. That's probably all the definition we need on that. We'll add definition back into his beak. We'll add definition back into the underside of his beak, the bit where all the fish go. Obviously, biology is one of my specialities. We'll add a little bit of definition in to where his eyes go. I'm going to reshape his eyes a little bit, I think. I want them to be a little bit bigger than what they were. And we will draw in his eyes a bit better. And we'll just... Oof, too much. Okay. All right, so now let's revisit this fish because all of this creasing and everything that's happened here has pretty much demolished. Oop. That's the one I want. It's pretty much demolished this fish. So let us commence to creating this fish again. So we kind of need it to... First thing I think we need to do actually is to define our terms and look at fish tails. We want a bifurcated fish tail. Bifurcated fish tail. That's with an BIFER for those who are playing at home. Right, so what we need to do, I think, because we don't want a fish tail that looks like a delta, that just looks like a triangle. I want a fish tail that's got a bit of oomph to it. So what we need to do, I think, is to have the fish tail be quite pointed on the inside and quite round on the outside. That may not make sense, but I think I know what I'm doing. So we really want to cut in like that. We want to cut it into a point. And then we want to draw this out sorry. We want to draw this out so that it's quite rounded off. We also need it to go right up to the beak. Also, I've lost the nostrils, whose name I can't recall now. What was it? What was the nostrils? Nan or something. All right, that's looking more fishy. I'm just going to... So now let's crease and cut this in just a little bit more for a bit of delineation purposes. And we're going to... Okay. We'll have to do something around here. I don't know what, but we're going to have to do something around here to make sure that the fish looks as though it's going into the beak. I think we're going to actually have to puff this up a little bit. And that, just a little bit. That kind of works. And we're also going to have to smooth... Oh, that was not what I wanted to do. We're also going to need to smooth this area. Because it's not... There we go. Because you kind of want... Under an area of something, you kind of want smoothness. Hope that makes sense. Okay. Let's redefine this hat. And then we're going to... I think we need to create a bit of texture around the back here because it's looking quite plain. So what I think I'm going to do is to make his or her or its sailor t-shirt. So it's going to have to come across here, cut in slightly. Cut in, or do we want it to cut in, or do we want it to bump up? I think we'll use a crease and we'll kind of let's save this for a moment and please stand by while I save this. I hope you like the way this animation goes. And we're back after 5 minutes of me trying to figure out where on the hard drive to save this. And no spoilers, it was in the C drive. All right. So we're going to want to almost... Nah. Where do we want this? I think we want this lower. I think we want this lower, and I think we want it sharper. And I think we want it... Do we even want it cutting in? Would we prefer it to be additive? Let's find out. I think what we want to do is we want to almost pull in. We almost want to pull in some of this. Or we want to inflate it. We could always... Let's try and inflate. All right. That's kind of looking where I want it to be. Okay. Now this is good. All right, so now we just need to inflate everything underneath it. I feel like I also want to... oh, should we give him some back muscles, or her, or it? What do back muscles look like? I think we've probably got something like that. That'll do. The beautiful thing about mussels, I find, particularly because, who knows what a bird back mussels are. You can kind of do whatever you want. I mean, because no one's going to be looking. I mean, if it was a person, you'd be like, oh, we should, realistically model the delts and the welts and the, something with zoids in it. Because it's a bird, you kind of don't need to. You can probably just get away with it. Should we give it a little bit of definition on the arm too? Again, going to have to look up what arm muscles look like. Arm muscles. Arm muscles. Now we want images of arm muscles. Right, so we need the muscle that comes in like this. No. Let's down that and give it some extra strength. You know what? It's going to be much easier if we just up the strength. Okay, so that muscle comes in like that. And there's another muscle that comes in underneath. Yeah, lovely. Okay. And then that muscle, we want even bigger. I feel like we've muscled him too much. We do want to muscle him a little bit though. There must be a happy medium. Because we do want this pelican to be, in the words of I think it was W.C. Fields or W.C. Grace, I can't remember. But you want it to be a beefcake. Beefcakey penguin, pelican, is what we're after. And what we're going to do is to just pull this in a bit. Alex Selly. Should we crease it? No, that is not the right thing. Oof, that looks like this pelican is on a massive steroids. Okay, we'll get there. We kind of need to be quite subtle in this, which, given that I'm currently making a tiki pelican mug that's going to be coloured in quite garish whites and pinks and yellows and things. Quite garish. You would think that perhaps subtlety is not where this mug is going. But here we are. Do we want to perhaps create? Do we want to create a little bit of texture in the t-shirt? All right, let's remesh, and you can see that it is starting to really get quite decent definition, which means I'm going to have to clean up everything again. This is kind of the way, and presumably there is a better way, and if you are aware of the better way and do tiki mugs using this, feel free to tell me. But I find that the way that I best work using Blender is to go in quite harsh definition and do your work, and then go into finer and finer definition, then find you have to redo your work again. It's kind of like shellacking or something. You know, you basically do something, or sanding. You basically do something, and then you find you have to resand everything and redo it and resand it and redo it. Not that I've ever sanded anything in my life. I'm largely allergic to woodwork. Okay. A fishtail is looking all right, although again, it's going to need more definition. So let's just give it a sand. The beak is looking good. We will now cut in the nostrils. Also, we need to look after these. And I want to say these, I'm worried about these pupils because I want them to be round. I don't want them to be pointy. I want them to be kind of like, you know, huh. Well, that's no good. But it is interesting that I have that power, the blob power. Huh. Look at that. That is quite interesting. Okay. Well, what we could do is we could set the blob to be quite small. That looks awful. I think we want a... what if we up the smoothness of it? Of the blobbiness. That looks pretty awful too. That's okay. I think we're just going to draw on it, and we're going to do a lot of smoothing and up our definition. And undo all of that because that looks awful. I'll take the smoothness back a bit. Like, honestly, Control Z is the thing that I do the most when I'm creating a tiki mug. Hey, there we go. Look at that. Right, so he's looking down. Whatever. Should we give this pelican agenda? I feel like probably giving this pelican agenda was just going to sort out any issues pertaining to the pelican. So let's call him a him. And that's not saying that ladies can't be sailors, but I just feel like he's a fairly rough pelican. Sorry, I'm just going to see if I can reframe this so I can show you all the tools I'm using. That's not too bad. I feel like this is a relatively... Also, it's hiding quite happily the delineation of my green screen. I feel like this is a bloke pelican. Because I feel like he's kind of rough, you know. He's got his food half hanging out of his mouth. I was going to see if he could have like a pipe, like a smoking pipe out the side of his mouth as well. But no, I think that's probably not a great idea. I'm going to smooth his muscles a bit because I think I've probably... oh no, hang on, I'm drawing in more muscles. I'm going to smooth this guy's muscles a little bit because I feel like... I'm going overboard with the excitement of his buffness. All right. Time for some more creasing. So I didn't mean for this little hook thing to happen at the end here, but I kind of like that it has. So I'm going to lean into it. We also need to provide this pelican with its nostrils. So we'll do some. Yeah, that's not bad, but it's too much. Okay. So where did we say? Around about here. All right. Okay. Nostrils. I am not happy at all with those nostrils. No, the nostrils were not good. We could crease in some nostrils. We could absolutely crease in some nostrils and do them further north. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of... We need to smooth that out a little bit, but that is kind of where we're going. We might just hook that round a little bit, give it a bit of definition. Right, okay, give that a smooth. Right, and I think we have that done. Okay, so what I think we want to do now is to create... I want to create like a shaggy-like texture. I feel like even if we don't give it a jerry curl, we need to give it a shaggy-like texture. So for this, I'm going to need some brushes. I hate brushing. I hate using brushes in this program. I'm not good at it. I can't figure it out half the time. And I'm even having trouble figuring out how to find the brushes on this thing. Modifier. No. Brush settings. At this point in time, it being 44 minutes on the clock, I'm not going to waste any more of your time, gentle viewer. Even if the only viewer here is the void, because I respect the void. But what I am going to do, I think, is to figure out how to use brushes in this program, because I can't remember how to and I hate using them. But I think for the next staggeringly awesome live stream of this, I will be cutting in the pelican's hair and doing a little bit more definition. In fact, we can probably just do a tiny little bit of definition on this fish. Oof, that was too much definition. We'll try that again. A little bit of definition around the fish tail. That's it, doesn't need much. Well, that's probably too much, actually. There we go. Okay. Next time, gentle viewers, I think we'll do a little bit of work on the hair to make it a little bit textured, and we'll also potentially do some work on some stripes on this t-shirt. And then we might almost call it donezo. I need to top and tail it. I need to make this, I need to sort of make this look a little bit more tiki-ish with a few tips, a few tricks up my sleeve. But then I think we are golden. We shall soon find out. Until then, thank you. Please enjoy the standby, and I will stop streaming.